Alright, this is a real quick burnout test of the 4L80 swap, 342 gears, sort of open differential. Let's give it a go. Need more power. That's all I can say about that.
When it comes to wiring, there are two major differences. Number one, the pinout or arrangement of wires in the main transmission connector between the 4L60 and the 4L80, well, they're arranged differently. And number two, the 4L80 uses an input speed sensor and an output, where the 4L60 only uses an output. Now, the different pinout, well, you could either rearrange the wires yourself or simply buy a conversion harness, which is what I did. Basically, has one end for the transmission and one end for the harness on the truck. The input speed sensor, that's actually not that difficult to solve either, because you can buy on Amazon or eBay or wherever just a simple input speed sensor conversion kit for a 4L80. It's terminated on one end with a plug that simply clicks right into the sensor, and on the other end it has these two little connectors that you have to plug into the ECM down there on the fender well. Now I'll get started underneath the truck and finish up top. So adding the two speed sensor wires into the computer is probably the most difficult or intimidating part of this whole wiring conversion, and is honestly not that bad. It's just one of those situations where you've got to take your time and be patient, because if you manhandle these plastic connectors, you can break them, and if you do, well, you either need to order a replacement online or go to a junkyard and try to find another one. But again, just take your time. It's really not that bad. The two connectors that we're interested in are number 22 and number 23 on the red connector. Not the blue one, the red one. Depending on the computer, this may be green, but again, not the blue. Pins number 22 and 23, they're empty. There's nothing in them, these top two right over here. On the back side, everything is labeled with some numbers, so you really have no guesswork. Just follow the instructions. It'll tell you which wire goes into which cavity. So the very last thing that you got to do before you go out for a test drive is tune the computer and basically tell it that, okay, now you're attached to a 4L80 instead of a 4L60. Now, you do need some specialized tools to make this happen. I'm using a tuning software and performing what's called a segment swap. Now, I went online and there's a tune repository where you can find basically stock tune files from all kinds of different vehicles. I found a same year truck, a 2000 Chevy Silverado, except I used a 2500 stock tune file that came with a 6-liter and a 4L80 automatic. Now, this software basically will take the parts of the tune that you want and combine it together. So the segment swap utility will combine the automatic transmission portion of the 2500 tune, and it'll merge that with a tune file that I pulled out of this truck from the 5.3. So again, the 4L80 tune merged with the 5.3 tune, and you flash it back in and you're good to go. Now, I am going to make a few more changes to things like the shift timing, just to kind of optimize, what RPM it shifts at, remove the speed limiter, and a few other tweaks like that. But for the most part, as long as you take those two stock portions of the tune file and merge them together and flash it in, you'll be good to go.
So it's nice to have a truck that'll actually shift through the gears. This is pretty much the first time I've driven the UglyTruck since I've owned it when the transmission is functioning properly. Because remember, when I first bought it, it had a 4L60 4L60, that was toast. No second or fourth gear. So I didn't have to swap to a 4L80. I could have just put another 4L60 in, but it's totally worth it for the strength upgrade that this transmission brings. So far, everything's working pretty good. It was a junkyard transmission, and I had no idea on the miles that it had. The fluid, it was a little bit dirty, but I put some new stuff in, and we're just gonna send it and see how it goes. But for now, it shifts through all the gears, and it feels fine. So hopefully I'll get some life out of it before I have to rebuild it. One thing that I notice immediately is the acceleration of the truck is a little bit slower now with the 4L80, and that's simply due to the gearing. First gear in this thing is a little bit higher than it was in the 4L60, so you can just expect it to be a little bit slower off the line, especially with the 342s that are in the back of this truck right now. Down the road, I do plan on changing them out. I'd love to do something like a 430, 411s, or maybe even a 456. Now, that might sound drastic, but it's a 5.3, and it'll definitely help get this truck off the line. As far as complications with the swap, everything was actually pretty straightforward. I mean, you had to account for the different spacing of the flex plate and then move the rear cross member back a little bit. But other than that, I mean, I just had to change the yoke on the drive shaft. The length actually worked perfect as it is. As far as the cost of a conversion like this goes, 4L60 to a 4L80 in a two-wheel drive pickup truck, I'll have to put the numbers up on the screen for you to be accurate, but I think I've got somewhere right around $1,500 in this conversion. $900 for the transmission, and the rest of it is just all the little bits and pieces needed to actually make the conversion happen. But at the end of the day, I'm happy. This thing shifts great, it drives great, and I'm ready for the next upgrade. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Now, if you guys have any questions about anything that you saw today, just hit me up, write a comment down below, and I'll do the best to answer your technical questions and maybe help you out if you're doing a similar conversion. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time. No brakes, just foot to the floor. Spun a tiny bit. All right, there's 30, 40, 45, 50, 55 miles an hour in first gear. This thing definitely stretches it out.